From constructing our media product, we learned a lot about technology, and that it was split into main two areas from the software we use and the camera technology side. Using software to edit our media products took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and we had to learn a lot of new features and functions about our software to create what we have done. And so that involved using Adobe After Effects, Cinema 4D and Adobe Premiere Pro. And within those software, on that software we had to learn the whole thing ground up. However, I knew what I was doing, so therefore we had an advantage on using software and editing and creating the effects that we wanted to use. So therefore it's only Colin and Greg who needed to know how to learn it, and I could implement them and teach them what to do. So using the software, we looked at different aspects of how we could create the effects that we wanted. And as soon as we knew it was an action movie, we knew that we wanted muzzle flashes and explosions, and so we had to do that. And the only software we could use, or that I thought was best to use, was Adobe After Effects. And so inside Adobe After Effects, we had to import a muzzle flash, rotate it, sculpt it, move it around and adjust it for the right position, so therefore it looked good and realistic, because we aimed to make our movie, our short film entry, 3 minutes, realistic. And so by using this software, that helped us do that. And so from there, we had to do all that editing, which took a lot of time, and we aimed to make it the most realistic we could. And we believe that including high-looking visual effects could do so. And so, as well as using After Effects to import all these effects and create them, for the jet scene that you see at the opening, we had to sort of go out a bit more, and we had to use 3D development software such as Cinema 4D. And so we did so. And I knew what I was doing within Cinema 4D, so therefore it didn't take me long to do what I wanted to do. However, I learned some new stuff about all the lighting techniques and the positioning and how to match objects into real life time. So all that helped, and the outcome was amazing. We created what we needed to do and it looked realistic. So from there, after we've done all the effects, we composed them all together, and then we also colour corrected them, did the letterboxing, and we also improved the light on some scenes. All of this became useful, and we did this with all our scenes, even the office scenes which do not require a amount of effects, but we had to get the colour correction perfect, as well as how to create three-dimensional lighting around certain objects to make it more realistic. After that, we had all our clips together, we imported them into Premiere Pro, and from there we had to line them all up into the correct order that we wanted them. This was fairly easy, and the hard part came next when we had to match the recorder sound up that we did on a separate microphone to the clip sound. This took a lot of time as we needed to get it pitch perfect, so the dub was correct because we didn't want bad auto dubbing. And then we did so. Soundtracks, we used a lot of instruments as well as loops, and he cleverly put them together, and it turned out very well. The soundtracks, each scene matched right up to the tempo of the music, and especially for the last scene when we involved the national anthem, we had to actually go out and learn the national anthem, which took about 5 or 10 minutes, but it sounded well in the end. Then had all the soundtrack together, we had all the voice recordings in place, all the effects were done, everything was in line, and so that was a challenging bit of creating it, and especially for our opening 3 minutes, there was a lot of effects involved, and there was a lot of time that we had to put in, and the time that we put in showed the outcome, and I believe that it turned out very well, and that we couldn't ask it to go any better. The other technology that we used apart from software and the editing software we used was the camera, and you may think camera's pretty simple, just press record and you record your footage. However, we wanted to get the best quality out of our camera, and we used 2 separate cameras. We used a school camera, which was a Canon 6500D, and my personal camera, which was Canon 700D. So therefore, there are different lenses and different processing powers and the way the footage turns out. So on both of the cameras we had to set the aperture, the contrast, the adjustment settings, the lens light, we had to set them all to the right standard for the right scene. So therefore when we were filming outside we were using my personal camera, and we had to make sure that the aperture and the contrast was right, as we didn't want too much light coming through the lens, so the screen looked all the footage looked very blurry and bright. So therefore we had to set all that up to be the right position. And then when we were filming the office scenes, we used the school camera, and the first office scenes we used the school camera, and the second one used my personal ones. And from there, the lighting was completely different in Outfilm and Middle Woods. So we had to adjust the contrast as well as the aperture to suit the scene and the map. That is how you get some of the best quality out of your footage, is having the right settings and to match the lighting. And so we did so. So when we filmed the office scenes, we had extra lights placed in the corner of our seat, of the set. And then from there, we adjusted camera settings to the correct light settings, and that helped us get the best quality. We also had to make sure that all the shots were focused, and we thought we should use autofocusing. However, that only focuses on one point, and when we were filming outside for action scenes, the camera was moving around at a lot of pace, and so therefore we thought it was better if we use manual focus so we can adjust each scene as we go. And it took a couple of attempts to get it right, as some scenes were perfectly focused and the others it would jot out. But as we filmed one scene autofocus and cut straight to a manual focus scene, and that allowed us to match our different scenes up with the focusing. One way to having the best settings in the camera helped us to relate to the colour correction is that we shot our footage in RAW, and that made the footage bland, which some may think isn't the best way to do it. However, when you're colour correcting it, it is. And this gave us the best outcome as when we were editing it, to adjust the levels, the curves, the aperture, all that inside of After Effects, which allowed us to get the look that we have portrayed. And a lot of other media products that we have seen have shot them in just normal standard. However, we shot it in raw footage, which allowed us to get a better look for our colour correction, and I believe that was the best decision to make. One of the reasons that we shot our footage in the highest quality was that it would do justice to our media work and that it would look good. However, we knew, since our film we have a lot of effects, that there would be a lot of rendering out and a lot of compressing and moving around, changing between different software. And from previous experience, I know that if you move backwards and forwards between different software, rendering out again, it can lower the resolution and the quality, and we did not want this. So therefore, we shot in the highest resolution, which was 2K equivalent, and then from there we did all the effects within After Effects, and all the effects within and from there we rendered it out into 1080p, and then that allowed us to bring it to Premiere Pro, adjust it in there, match all the shots up, bring it back to After Effects if needed, if there's any changes to be made, render it backwards and forwards, switching between different software without affecting the resolution, as we filmed it in a much higher resolution than normal. So that would allow us to play around and not lose any quality once we're jumping between different software. And that was one of the reasons that we decided to shoot in high quality, is that we didn't want to lose any of the quality, because we knew if we shot straight up in 1080p or 720p, and we knew that we'll be jumping backwards and forward between software, rendering it out, it's going to lose its quality and resolution, and we did not want that. So that's one of the reasons we took upon that decision. It's clear to say that our group has learned a lot from the technology that we've used in making our media product, from the editing to getting the camera settings right. All of this was quite a complex process. However, we believe that we've achieved an outstanding result within our media product, and that the knowledge that we've learned from using these softwares will be very beneficial in other media products or creations that we will do in the future.